Hey everyone, welcome back to I'd Like to Unsubscribe. And today's episode comes with an actual trigger warning. Like literally, the pun is totally intended. We are unsubscribing from our trigger stories. Because if you've been in the autoimmune world for more than like 2 minutes, you know there's always a story. It's that one big event, or maybe it was 10 in a row for you that just flipped that switch from I'm fine to, oh, like sometimes it's this really beautiful thing like having a baby. And sometimes it's something completely devastating like trauma or loss. Sometimes it's just this slow drip, 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 drip of stress until finally the dam in your life just completely breaks open. So today we're diving into that science. It's the science of what those events do to our bodies, the heartbreak of the grief that really comes from them, and why your trigger story, it's not your whole story. Because I promise you, there's so much beauty to come.
What if the life you planned vanished overnight? For Marissa and Britt, it was painful chronic conditions without cures. We lost everything: our health, independence, careers, and even our sense of self. But in the wreckage, we found something unexpected: a chance to rebuild. Welcome to I'd Like to Unsubscribe, the podcast for anyone feeling stuck, lost, traumatized, or just straight up over it. This isn't about surviving illness or trauma. It's about ditching the toxic beliefs holding you back and even daring to dream again. We're bringing real talk, hard-earned wisdom, lots of sarcasm, and practical tools to help you rise. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll remember, even in the darkest moments, hope is still alive.
Are you experiencing symptoms of lupus or feeling alone on this journey? The Lupus Foundation of New England is here to help you. They're dedicated to supporting those living with lupus, offering education, resources, and a community to help you navigate the journey. From learning about symptoms and testing to upcoming events and research, the Lupus Foundation of New England has you covered. Visit lupusne.org and connect with others who truly understand. You don't have to do this alone. Visit lupusne.org, that's lupusne.org today. Hey everyone, welcome back to I'd Like to Unsubscribe, and I'm Britt.
And I'm Marissa, and well, this episode is going to feel a little like group therapy, right? But
Yeah.
with more sarcasm because it's me and Britt, and no co-pays. And
Woo-hoo!
right, who doesn't love no co-pays? I'm in.
Oh yeah, this is not going to come with a $50 charge. You're welcome. So yeah, because nothing says fun podcast like trauma, grief, and autoimmunity. Like it's so great, right? But here we are, just really embracing it. Because honestly, y'all, I would just love to ignore the hard stuff of life and completely distract myself and you by talking about just really fun stuff that I'm doing or what I'm binging on Netflix. And it's like I'm really into Korean dramas right now. So yeah, I would love to just sit there. I love them. I'm sorry.
I don't even know what they are. I'm gonna have to go do a Google search.
Don't, because then you're just spiral yourself, okay? Like, but that's what I really want to talk about, okay? That's why we want to be here. I want to do that, but y'all, that's not how we heal. And we're not here to help you escape your life. We're here to help you live your life to the fullest and its most beautiful. And that starts with the painful process of peeling back the layers of awareness to just get to the core of where we actually heal.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Britt, I know that we talk a lot about like tender ground here, right?
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, like if you need to pause or go grab some hot tea or you're going to ugly cry with your dog later on, then we just say do it, right? Because we are here for it all. So today I want you to look at us like we are your girlfriends, and we're leaning in to say with full compassion a question that you may not be asked a lot. And that is, what happened to you? And honestly, like this is a really crucial question, because I can say like 25 years ago, post-diagnosis, like that's where I'm at, only a handful of people have really wanted to go deep and really wanted to know like, hey, what happened to you that made your body all of a sudden go haywire? I feel like it is
Yeah.
a very rarely asked question, and it's sort of right up there with the how are you really feeling? Like, actually tell me, not just like, okay, I'm okay, everything's fine. Like, how are you really feeling? We don't get these questions, I think, a lot where someone really wants us to peel back and say, well, this is actually what happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we get the looky-loos, right?
Hmm.
Like they're curious, but in like a morbid way. They don't, it's not like a curiosity because they care. It's just like, ew, what happened to you? You know, like we get that, but not the
Agree.
like, I want to know because I care and I like this matters to me, like that empathy, right? Yeah, we don't get that. You know, people don't want to lean in, and we've had, multiple episodes on that. But I think we got to start with some science on it because it's this widely known thing within the autoimmune circle. And whether we've like expressed it as like trigger story, it's not at the probably same level as we call each other spoonies, but it's this known thing when we start chatting with each other that usually a big life event is what happens before all the symptoms come.
Yeah. Sometimes when I've talked about this with people like you and just, that are go a little bit like deeper and really want to try to figure out like what's happening, right? Like if we kind of think about this as our body has like this loaded genetic gun. And when we
Yeah.
face significant stress, whether that's good or bad, but that can be the finger that essentially pulls that trigger, right? I think when we
Hmm.
hear stress, we often default to maybe something negative, which of course there are a lot of stressors in life that can be seen as negative, but there's also eustress, which is good
Yeah.
stress. And this can be something very exciting and happy that's happening in your life. Like you were talking about having a baby, planning a
Mhm.
wedding, going on that trip of a lifetime. But it's something that also puts the body under an extreme amount of stress. And science totally backs this up. So there's actually studies out there that show that over 80% of autoimmune patients, they can point to a specific stressor in that
Mm.
year or so before their diagnosis. That might be a car
Yeah.
accident. It could be the death of a loved one. Something great like having your child.
Mhm.
Because your body doesn't necessarily read like, oh, wait, hold on a second. This stress is positive. This one's negative. It's just reading, I am overloaded.
Yeah, yeah, and to tag on to that, like, the reason why is because your body is under this significant stress, and then, the science, right? Like, your body dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your system rather. Like, it's like, "Oh, okay, like, let me help you out." It's not doing it to be a jerk, it's like, "We got you," it's your cheerleader, and that's helpful when you're running from a bear,
Mhm.
you know? I've never been chased. Actually, I've almost been chased by a bear. So, like, that was helpful then. But when it's this long term drip because of stress or grief or abuse that you've endured, it's system burnout from living in a world that's constantly telling you, have you hustled more? That
Mhm.
constant flood actually weakens your immune system. It's not helping it, it's not strengthening it, it's weakening it in one way and it's revving it up in another way, right? But not in like the good way. In so that perfect storm is like swirling around and then boom, autoimmune genetic chaos.
Right. And I think that's why we often hear with autoimmune, it's not just this one thing, right? There's usually some type of genetic predisposition, and then there's some type of environmental or like physical, personal trigger. So, like all of these
Mm,
sort of little things have to line up, right? So, we do know that chronic stress dysregulates the immune system, right? Your T
yeah.
cells, they start confusing like, is this friend? Is this foe? And inflammation in your body goes through the roof. So you can look at that. It's sort of like your body soldiers are suddenly starting to shoot at their very own camp. Like something tripped and went haywire at this point.
Yeah, and that's epigenetics right there, right? Epigenetics. Your genes might have been just like kind of quietly minding their own business for, a moment, like, yeah, we got you. But then that trauma, that stress, and then it's flipping the switch. Like it's boom, right? Researchers have consistently shown that stress hormones can literally change your genes as they get expressed.
Yeah.
Like stress isn't just inconvenient, a little hard, you got to take extra magnesium to wind down. Like chronic levels of it change your biology. You got to like think about it in that way. So that's how something that was dormant and now it's fully alive.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes you can look and see like two people going through like a very similar divorce or accident or
Yes.
trauma, but why does one of them develop a chronic illness like lupus or MS, or
Mm,
RA? I mean, there's so many.
yeah.
It's not because that was the weaker of the two, it's just through a variety of potential scenarios within the body for that person, their genetic switch got flipped on.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're getting this misnomer that we get of like, I caused this, right? We talked about this in an episode, but it's like, no, you didn't cause your illness, right? Because we're always just like, if we were chiller. And it's not that. It's the trauma may have been the match, but the kindling was already there in your genes, right?
Yeah.
It's a genetic thing that's being turned on. The, and it's hard because there's this, it is a special kind of cruelty when your illness starts with trauma. It's like trauma on trauma, then, right? Like one day you're just living your life and maybe even kind of holding it together pretty well, like good on you. And then something truly awful happens to you. You lose someone you deeply love. An assault happened to you. You were raped. A heartbreak that just cracked your nervous system completely open at no fault of your own, like none. And then not long after that, you were like, man, I'm not recovering again. Like your body started to feel like it's falling apart.
Yeah. And that's something you and I have talked about before, like with our own stories of just, the what happened, and then all of a sudden you get this diagnosis, and you're
Mhm.
already just trying to recover and heal and
Yeah.
reconcile in your brain what happened to begin with.
Hmm.
And now you have this tacked on, right? So, I mean, talk about overwhelm for the body, and the body saying, hey, I'm overloaded here. And I think for so many people with autoimmune or chronic illness, that's the part that rarely gets talked about. It's that before and the after. So
Mm.
something unthinkable like happens, and your body never feels safe again after. And
Yeah.
suddenly, like, you are not just grieving what happened to you, you're grieving who you used to be. You're
Mm.
grieving the person whose body like didn't hurt just basically when they wake up in the morning. The person that could eat, pizza or go out to eat with their friends, and afterwards they don't need, a nap immediately and Tums for their stomach, and then they're on a heating pad for the rest of
Yes.
the night, because that's what our brain does. It goes down old pathways. It
Mm.
remembers the before.
Yeah. It's the twisted part, right? The trauma doesn't just leave physical scars, it leaves guilt and shame, and it gets buried into your cells because your mind is whispering, well, if I hadn't been there, mine for me is always if I'd handled it better,
Mm.
if I could have just done better, if it didn't hurt me so bad, maybe then I wouldn't be sick. Maybe then, my cells wouldn't have turned on the genes. And the body then starts to internalize that whisper and like treats it like it's gospel. And now it's translating your pain into punishment. Well, you deserve this. This is your fault. It's because you're weak. And that's where the darkness goes, because it's like being mugged twice. Like it's once by the trauma and now again by your own biology.
That's a really good way to put it. And it's really unfair because, I mean, none of us caused any of this, right? We didn't earn
Right.
our illness because we got like some cosmic penalty card that we picked.
Mm.
Something happened to you, not because of you. And I think that's something we have to always remind ourselves. But when the body responds to trauma with disease, I think it is easy to start believing that you broke yourself somehow, because I always went back
Yeah.
and thought, like, well, I really pushed my body when I already wasn't feeling great, and worked full time and went to college full time and did this. And,
Mhm.
I think also when you're young, you feel like you're invincible and that
Yeah.
you can take on a little bit more and a little bit more. So I think it's natural to question yourself,
Hmm.
but not to continue to live in that space because you didn't go in and turn on, the switch in your genes.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's so easy to believe that lie, I broke myself, because it's harder to believe the truth, which is your body was actually trying to protect you in the only way it knew how. So it decided to slow down and shut things off, and it's saying no more instead. And that's harder to believe because it doesn't feel like protection when your body creates sickness.
Right. And what you just said, I mean, that is what the body was created to do, right? The body wants to protect itself. So if you're listening and you've ever felt that deep shame about getting sick after the loss, after the trauma or the assault, after the thing that changed everything, Britt and I want you to know this. It is absolutely not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong.
Can you say that again? Because it's like, whole thing is on this.
You did not do anything wrong. Like, this is not your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. Your body was trying to survive something it should never have had to endure. Ever. And I just got like chills. Like, it makes sense that it broke down under the weight of it all.
Yeah.
Like, understand that. Like, you were not meant to endure that. That should never have happened to you, ever. So, of course, there's going to be breaking down in your body. You are a human, and that is okay. This is not your fault.
No. And I think if you are at the beginning of your journey, like, you might need to sit with this for a while and really meditate on this, because we know it's really hard. We know that at times it can feel like, oh my gosh, my body like just fully betrayed me. And I don't understand why. But like Britt was saying, like, it was actually trying to protect you in the only way that it knew how. And you know, it's fighting. Like, I've talked about this in previous episodes. Like, I look at my body now of like, it is fighting day and night, every single day, because it is constantly like under warfare, right? And I am so grateful that she's like continuing to fight, because every day is really hard. And so like, I'm in it together, right? I don't look at it now as like two entities, like me and my body that betrayed me. It's my body is fighting really hard for me, and I am standing in solidarity with it, and I'm going to try to help it in every way possible.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful, because that's where we want to be. But if you're still in that place where you feel like you're carrying a ton of shame about this and blame, we want you to clearly understand, like, that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to what happened. Right? It's not on you, and you get to set that entirely down. That's the healing process that's available to you. You don't have to hold that.
Right. Because that is like the body-mind link, right? You can't have a thought without your body feeling it in some way. Say your boss sends you a pretty harsh email, right? You feel your shoulders tensing up and your back starts to hurt you, and you feel your anxiety. You remember a loss in your life, and all of a sudden your stomach drops, and you almost like disassociate with everything around you, right? Your brain and body are basically just codependent roommates. Your body will give you signals even before your brain registers what that emotion is. And that's why, like Britt and I talk about, having that hyper awareness of your body and why it is so important. And I think that is something in time that comes with illness. Like, you start to recognize the smallest shifts once you become like intimately aware with your body.
Yes, because once you're sick, there is no way to separate the mind body. And you know, like, sometimes we're like, oh, you know, maybe, but no, like, it is a detriment to you. If you only take your meds, but you ignore your mental health, you're going to still feel like trash. I'm telling you that right now. And I know that, you know, when we go to our doctor's appointments, there's so few of them that are asking, like, how are you mentally feeling? You know, like, that's for another doctor. They don't want to know. But I'm like, there is no healing the body without healing the mind. And if you are only doing therapy, but you're never addressing your inflammation, it's the same deal. You're not going to get well. They are interlinked. They are one. Like, you have to treat both. You know, and I think that's the gut brain axis, right? You know, that's the biology behind this. You know, it's not just, this is something that happens. No, it is the biology. Your gut and your brain are connected, and that's through the vagus nerve. And I'm sure maybe like you've seen some things on it. It's getting a little like more attention. It's like a, you know, more pop culture-y now, you know, the vagus nerve, it is so real. So, you know, it's honestly this permission card for both of, okay, you have to nap, but you also have to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do both now. Sorry.
We're going to make a collection of t-shirts on this. I have to deal with therapy, napping, and also your vagus nerve.
And we honestly need to make tons of t-shirts. There's so many different things. I think honestly, this blows is the first one.
This
that we
blows
do.
is absolutely. We have a whole list, folks. We have a whole list.
It's so good. It's so good. But y'all, I mean, we always promise like we'll keep it real with you. And so to get personal, like we both have trigger stories, and if we're honest, for a long time we couldn't tell them. Like it was really traumatizing. We've talked about this before. It's the BC and 80 life, like the timeline on a calendar, which is, before Christ and Anno Domini. But like for us, it's like, okay, it's before chronic illness. That's our BC. And then
BCI.
80 is, yeah, BCI, BC little I. And then like for me, it's like it's after death. Like that's my 80. Because that's what it feels like, and especially in those beginning years. And even occasionally now, I had a meltdown an hour ago on the phone about chronic illness. Like it's this this beginning that's like all these little deaths. Like do you guys get that? It's this mind and body and career and energy, these little deaths all along the way. There's so much to grieve. And we've said it that like grief isn't this one time thing. It's not just like I did it and now we're good. I grieved yesterday. I grieved today. It shows up at holidays and traditions that now feel cumbersome, when it was like everybody went and hiked and cut down their own Christmas tree, and now that feels like a challenge. And it shows up when you go to your doctor's office, and it's in the little things too, right? Like this, I'm going to go to a birthday party, but I'm not gonna be able to eat the cake, because I have all these crazy dietary things. Like it's all these little deaths all along the way.
And that is like a huge little death, right, in the world of chronic illness. Because, you and I both have, and it's very common to have a lot of allergic issues when you have an autoimmune disease. There is a high percentage of those corresponding together. And I grew up in a large Italian family that loves to cook and eat. And that is how we spend time with one another. And that is just sort of the foundation, right, of our society, that we break bread with one another. And that is how we kind of commune together. Yeah. And yet you and I still do it because I think we just love being with people and our family and whatnot. But we're the ones sitting there not eating, or we're pulling, a bar out from our purse that is like the one safe thing, when I'm watching everyone else eat like the most incredible things. And, I smile and I get through it. But man, I want to dig in too. Like, I just want to enjoy something little like that. Right. It's still something that's struggle with, but
it totally makes you sad. Yeah.
But, yes, I've absolutely also felt like there's such a line of division for me in that BC little I /80 story, right, of chronic illness. I've talked about it here on the episodes. I've talked about it before in my memoir, Chronically Fabulous. But I was not a healthy child, and I had a lot of weird autoimmune things essentially since I was born, and then these strange allergies, and then asthma. And for about those first 10 years of my life, I was on constant antibiotic therapy, which we know now because of research. When you're taking antibiotics for extended periods of time, it causes a lot of changes in the cells in the body. Yeah. And around the age of 8, it was definitely, I feel like this a sort of unfortunate series of events that started that I think really started to flip my health to the other side. One, I was at camp and there was this crazy outbreak of something called Coxsackie virus, and I wound up hospitalized. And there's a lot of research on viruses like that and Epstein-Barr and their relation to lupus. And so I got so sick from that. I was one of the children that, of course, wound up hospitalized, shocking. And then we moved to Florida, and that is when I started having all of these major sun and heat issues that caused incredible amounts of symptoms that were so clearly lupus. But I talk about this in my TED Talk. It being in the 80s, they weren't necessarily testing for lupus the way they do today. So essentially I suffered, through those teen and early college years because I had been pushed off by so many doctors. But it wasn't until my early 20s where, a lot of you know my story, I was run over by a pickup truck when I crossed the street one night. And that's it. That's the moment, right? And like you said, Britt, of course I've gone back and I've asked those questions. What if I had just stayed home that night? What if I didn't, get out of my car in that moment and walk into that area? At that exact moment, would the lupus have ever come out full force? Because clearly, like you
Mm,
said earlier, it was kindling, right?
yes,
But it
yeah.
also needed this environmental trigger that pushed it over the edge. But honestly, it could have come out years later, maybe when I had a child, because we know
Mm,
pregnancy is also a major trigger for autoimmune. But that was the moment that my body completely switched off, and my life has never been the same after that. So there is that division line, and I think when we look
mm,
back and we learn about triggers and what different triggers can be, there are a lot of people that can truly identify what that is.
mm. I mean, that's yeah, those things like we said that come up. What if I'd stayed home that night? Those questions, the what ifs that we go through, right? This is those questions are just as much as part of our stories because that's the things that we have to wade through in order to be able to kind of get to the other side. And we've got more to talk about with this because I know that there's so much that's probably already spitting in your head as you're listening about your own story. But we're going to take a really quick break. We're going to hear from our amazing sponsors that make this happen, and then we'll jump right back in.
Trying to figure out what's triggering your symptoms but can't put your finger on it? Try Folia, a health tracking app to help you connect the dots and get to the bottom of what's going on. Download Folia Health free in the App Store with invite code LupusChick. Folia is the one app to track it all. Learn more at foliahealth.com/lupuscheck. That's FOLIA health.com/lupuscheck.
Are you experiencing symptoms of lupus or feeling alone on this journey? The Lupus Foundation of New England is here to help you. They're dedicated to supporting those living with lupus, offering education, resources, and a community to help you navigate the journey. From learning about symptoms and testing to upcoming events and research, the Lupus Foundation of New England has you covered. Visit lupusne.org and connect with others who truly understand. You don't have to do this alone. Visit lupusne.org. That's lupusne.org today. Hey everyone, welcome back. So, want to jump back into trigger stories, and mine started when I was really young too. Although I didn't have kind of the classic symptoms, I was really not a well child as well. They thought I had leukemia. They did a bunch of testing when I was a kid, and it was so traumatizing. Honestly, all of my medical trauma that I experienced started when I was a kid and being held down during procedures. And that does something to the body. And but I thought, when I was through my high school years, it wasn't too bad. Things were pretty manageable. I had found naturopathic medicine, and I was like, okay, we're on a really good route in life. But I wasn't able to have a baby. And my husband and I went through lots of infertility treatments and IVF and all the things. And how you notice it's like the slow turn on. It's like, okay, click, this is the first click. And going through IVF was my first click. I noticed then that my body just never really recovered from that. Injecting all of those chemicals into my body, it was brutal on me. I went a little loco and it was not fun. But IVF failed, and so that's, okay, first click over, body's not doing super well. And then I became a mom literally within 24 hours through adoption. We'll get into the depth of the story sometime. My daughter actually came to me recently and was like, "Mommy, will you do an episode on adoption?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, kid." Like,
I love
I
that.
mean, it's just so awesome. But I became a mom literally 24 hours. It was crazy. And that was my next click.
Mhm.
It was a great stressor. I became a mom. I've been wanting to be a mom, but it was so much like instantaneously.
Your whole
So,
life changed like
yeah,
overnight.
done. Literally overnight done. So, next click. And then when she was about 10 months old, we had gone on a vacation. We had just come back and, we had gotten everything, put away and down for the night. We put her, in her little pack and play for a little bit as we were trying to, put stuff away. And then we put her down for bed. And at about an hour into bedtime, we woke up to the sound of what to me was somebody kicking through our French doors. I mean, it was so loud, the sound of glass crashing everywhere. I mean, it was like, I mean, sat straight up. Our alarm system is going crazy. My husband is he's in his like boxers. We don't have any weapons. You know, he's trying to grab any. I think he grabbed a lamp. I'm like, what are you gonna do with
Grab my
that?
makeup brush.
Yes. And I am like, well, you know, he's going out there, you know, and I mean, my brain is like, these people are coming in to kill us. I mean, there's no other thought in my mind, but we are about to die. These people are clearly telling their presence. The alarm system's going crazy. And so he goes out and he's looking around and he's like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, what do you mean it's okay? Like, you know, who's in there? And he's like, no, something had fallen off. We had this huge antique ox yoke. So it was this really heavy, you know, large piece of wood that we'd hung over our mantle. And for whatever reason, it had come unattached and fell down, hit our mantle, crashed into everything that was on our mantle, which was a lot of these, you know, knick-knacky, you know, glass things, and had fallen down. And so, I mean, that, you know, made sense. And so he's like, no, you can come out, you know. And so I come out of the room, and that was like enough of like a, you know, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And what I realized then, which is terrible in the fight, flight, or freeze, y'all, I'm a freeze. I was so mad. I was like, really? Like, I'm a warrior. But dang, when you think you're about to die, I could barely get off that bed to go out there. I was like, are you sure? Are you mean like, you know? So I walk out, I'm assessing everything. Your brain's trying to take it in. And I'm like, okay, everything's good. But then I saw it. So the ox yoke had come down and fallen into my daughter's pack and play like a steak. And y'all, if that had fallen an hour and a half prior, it would have killed her. It was like 50, 60-pound thing on a, you know, 10-month-old child. It would have killed her. And the moment I saw that and my body registered what happened and the fact that like also that we were saved, like, thank you, God. But my brain could, like, it was like no comprehende. And I went into full shock. Full shock. I was shaking head to toe. I couldn't control my body temperature. My husband had to stack blanket after blanket on top of me. And no joke, he laid his whole body weight on top of mine to keep force, to try to get my parasympathetic to like come back. And I was just, I mean, just like freaking out. And I always wondered in movies, like, why do they always put a blanket around somebody, you know, like at the end of a traumatic thing? And I was like, I get it now. Like, you don't have any body temperature.
But
Yeah. Like, it was, whoa. And from that point on, I started to get sick all the time and could never recover and could never, like, I was just sick, malaise. I always felt like I had a cold. I was so anxious that I was just like shaking and I just was non-functioning, trying to figure out what happened, which then led me down a journey of like, I've got to really figure this out. And 9 months later, I was diagnosed with my first autoimmunity, which is Hashimoto's. And it changed everything. But it was that like that last click, right? We were almost already there and boom, and then it was on.
Yeah. You know, and I don't think you've ever shared, for me, in our friendship, or maybe I just didn't catch it, but just the IVF in terms of your diagnosis, right? And that makes such sense to me as far as hormones have such a correlation to autoimmune. And you were essentially just drastically changing the hormone balance in your body, right? With good reason. You wanted to try to have a baby, okay? But, you know, for someone that's, like you said, you were already sort of on that line, like that is major as far as pushing you over that edge, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, in retrospect, I don't know if I would have done anything different, right? Because, you know, that drive to be a mom, like there is no shame in any of you out there trying to do IVF or however way you decide to become a parent. I know for me, like it was such like a desperate drive and I needed to do that. So I don't know if I would have done anything different, but I now realizing like, I really think that was the first click for me, that it was like, oof, it's a brutal, right? It's like we're talking about the trauma on trauma. I can't have a baby, and so I try to do this and it makes me sick.
Right. Well, and the good stress too. Like you're excited because this is the thing that could potentially help you and your husband have a baby,
Yeah.
right? So you want to give it a try. I didn't try to or come to that place in my life of trying to have children until years after my diagnosis, and because I had blood clots and those types of issues from lupus and a miscarriage. Anything hormonal was an immediate no from the doctors for me, right?
Yeah.
Even something like a birth control pill, as far as like helping with different things going on in my body, it was like, well, you don't even have that option, So I think something like that, where it sort of comes on your autoimmune journey, is it stinks any way around, right? It's like the trauma on top of the trauma. But we do the things that we do because we want to have certain things in our life. I wanted to be a nurse. I pushed myself through nursing school. I went to school all day, rotation, and then I bartended all night. I knew I was pushing my body to the limit. But I just kept saying, it's only for this much longer, and then I'm done, right? And then I graduate, and like normal quotation life starts. And unfortunately, like my body made it till just the end. Maybe if I didn't, like I said, if I didn't get run over by that truck, I would have graduated. But again, maybe trying to have a child or having a child would have been, because that is something I hear constantly in the lupus community. It is after the pregnancy. It's usually during the pregnancy you feel amazing because of the hormones. And as soon as those hormones drop, they all of a sudden start having kidney issues and symptoms and whatnot. So no shame on any of this. It's more of when you're able to, I think, to go back and sort of assess, like you said, what those clicks were. Like you can very clearly see that for you, this is where your body was over and over again sort of pushed over that threshold, and then it just never came back. And like we were talking about in the other half of the episode, like it is absolutely, I think, natural to go back and question those things and to sort of let it ruminate in the mind. But, Britt and I always we do like to talk about the mind a lot, and we also like to talk about our faith. And I think, if we look at this in sort of a biblical perspective, like the Bible it has a lot to say about how we are connected and how our minds and our bodies are actually connected. Romans is a great area for this. 12:2, it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the translation of that is, your thought life can literally reshape you. The science viewpoint of that is found in neuroplasticity, which is something that we hear about a lot, right? So there you have like the science version and the biblical version. And then if we go back to the Bible, if we look at Proverbs 14:30 specifically, it says, a heart at peace gives life to the body. And that's not just poetry, Brittany. I feel like that's biology, because we know when we're in peace, when we don't have chaos around us, our body naturally does what it's supposed to do, of lowering your stress hormones, of lowering your blood pressure, and literally lengthening your life.
Because we've talked a lot about the mind body, but like we constantly say, we're triune. So the third element here, right, is the spiritual, and through us, it's through Jesus. And it's like, it's this really beautiful part, because God made our body and our mind to be teammates.
Yes.
Like they're supposed to be interconnected. That is a connection that it's not a curse, that it can feel like. It's a true gift. It means when your spirit is lifted, your body feels it, and when your body finds rest, your mind clears up. It's healing in one area in your life will always spill into the other area, because we are so deeply interconnected.
Right.
It's like God wove us together so tightly that we could never separate our own parts, because he never wanted us to. He doesn't want us to see us at war with each other. Like, we are one. He wanted us whole. And that's really great news. It means that you're never fighting alone. Every small act that you do of self-care or prayer or rest or laughter with your friends, or you go to therapy, it's all going to ripple through your entire being. It's not just it stays here. It's everything gets affected by it.
Right. I mean, I don't know anyone that, experiences an emotion and doesn't feel it later in their body, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're sad or angry, I know like usually within an hour of emotions like that are intense, whew,
Yeah.
my body is like, hey girl, I'm here,
Yeah.
not in
Hi.
a good way. Uh,
Yeah.
like it said, it's your body keeps the score literally. So if you've ever
Mhm.
had like a tension headache after you have a really stressful day at work or at home, well, surprise, like it wasn't, maybe because you were just sitting bad, or you had bad posture, like your body is storing that somewhere. And, in that instance, it's right between the temples, like in your head, like your body clearly sees like, okay, there's these chemicals that are all of a sudden rushing through our body depending on what emotion you're feeling, and your physical entity, your organs or whatnot, they're going to have a response to that.
Yeah, I mean, because that's such a great point, because different emotions, they'll set up camp in different areas of the body. So if you weren't aware of this, like lean in here. Like, so here's an example. If you tend to struggle with anxiety, okay, so if that's kind of like your baseline, all right, so it's going to show up in stomach pain, in nausea. You're going to have digestive issues, heart palpitations. So if you're having frequent heart flutters, you have IBS, you have an eye twitch, you have diarrhea, okay, that's anxiety's calling card. You need to be cued in. It's like I'm always telling my daughter, she's like, Mommy, I have a tummy ache. And I'm like, maybe you're feeling a little upset about something. No, I'm not. Okay.
Fine.
You're fine. But like your body's going to tell you probably before your brain does. So cue in, right? So you got these symptoms, you got to think anxiety. Grief and sadness, they're going to show up in this weight on your chest and shoulders and back. It's literally going to make you feel heavy and tight, right? So if you're having tension headaches and back pain, ask yourself, what haven't I grieved? Like, cue yourself in right there because your body's going to tell you. Anger, that's going to show up as liver issues, TMJ, muscle tightness, voice box malfunctions. Okay. So it's think this like, where have I been pretending to be fine, but I'm not? Right? That like that strain. If you're experiencing those symptoms, you got some anger somewhere. You got to lean into it. Shame and guilt are going to show up in this heaviness and pressure in your chest. It's a tightness around like your literal heart space. It's even difficulty taking in a deep breath because of that. This is your body's way of wanting to kind of curl in on itself and say, hide me. Like, please hide me.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, if you ignore or you try to ignore these signals, like your body's not like, okay, I'm just going to let it go. It typically gets louder, right? You get a really bad migraine. You have a full flare up of autoimmune. Maybe you start having insomnia, right? Your body gives you these very passive aggressive sticky notes that are like, hello, pay attention to me. Like I'm trying to tell you something.
Yes, the world's most inconvenient post-it notes. Yeah.
They really are. The post-it notes, I definitely don't want to get. But here's the thing, like once I think you learn to identify where your body is holding that emotion, you can release it. Britt and I, we both deal with anxiety, and because of that, Britt and I deal with an enormous amount of stomach issues. It's sort of like the first place that our body goes. But when you do learn, right, and then you can release it, right, because as we were saying, those feelings, they don't just disappear if we stuff them down. Yeah. And as we just said, like they will show up either in your immune system, or in your back and your shoulders, your stomach, right? Your body's always keeping receipts. So if you're listening and you've been chronically fighting any of those symptoms that we just mentioned, maybe just take a moment today and stop for your body's sake and say, okay, what emotions do I feel like I am holding on to here? Like, and where are they coming from? And it might seem like, just a silly exercise, but honestly, sometimes just naming that is that first step to get you to sort of flesh through it and be able to release it. But we have to actually stop for a second and say, okay, like, why is my stomach hurting me so badly in the last few days? Like, what changed? What happened in my life? Like, sort of, what was that thing that sort of set it off? Like, it's been years now. Britt and I can like specifically pinpoint it now to why our stomach, goes off when it does go off.
Yeah. Or at least call it out on each other. It's just like, I have no clue. And it's like, well, let me just name back to you the following 5 things you just said that you're carrying. And it's like, oh, Well, then
I'll tell
maybe.
Brittany sometimes, I'm like, girl, do you remember? Like, I think I said this to you not too long ago. I'm like, you just moved again and you had to deal with school issues and financial stuff and like parental, stuff. Like, we have a lot of things on our plate. I'm like, and you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot. That was just like the last week.
Yes. Our brains are so like, we just move on and we're gonna just move on, It's like I forgot that yesterday I was in the fetal position. Great today, like it's a survival tool, but it's not always very helpful.
Yeah.
And I mean, y'all, all this stuff is so hard to carry, and Marissa and I, like, we carry it for each other. But if you don't have that person, like, we want to give you some really practical tools because this is hard. And like we said before, it was really hard to talk about what we were going through and our trigger stories. I genuinely had no tools in my belt, like just zero, when I first started getting the question of like, yeah, what happened to you? And I would get so tight chested. I remember this time, it was like my sweet, loving aunt and uncle who are more like grandparents to me. And it was at my daughter's first birthday, and they knew like I had really been going through a hard time. And so they're like, what happened? And I sat down and I tried to talk to them because I knew they were leaning in with love. And my voice started to change. Like it was so tight chested, this huge lump. And it was like I couldn't even get it out. I didn't know how to soothe myself in order to be able to calm my nervous system because no one had ever told me how or why I needed to. It was just like, just keep going. That's what I had. I had soldier through as my only tool.
Yeah.
That was it, which is really helpful. Resilience is helpful, but that's only part of resilience. Dealing with your feelings is the other part of resilience. And so we don't want to leave you there. So like, how do you talk about your trigger story with it not triggering you,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you and I always talk about our faith and Jesus and therapy, right? As step one. But step two, and it's so essential, and that's learning to have self-compassion and also those self-soothing techniques, right? Those are things that I think, depending on how you were brought up, those things may have never been discussed with you, right? Those are things that we have to learn as adults. And sometimes the only reason you learn those tools, which are great tools to have, it's because you're kind of forced into the situation, like through chronic illness.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about our nervous systems because sometimes, like, your body just needs a little bit of help switching gears. And so to do that, that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Brittany, the vagus nerve. And people, the vagus nerve, it controls like everything in your body.
Everything.
It is like, why aren't we learning about this in science class when we're in high school? Like, this is something that everyone should know because it is controlling everything in every single body.
Yeah, like, why are we still dissecting frogs? What have we learned? Like, we need to talk about the vagus nerve.
Thank you. I'm like, I know I'm having this symptom. That time that I dissected that frog in 9th grade science class. That's
changed my life. Learned about the whole body then. No. Because like you said, like, the vagus nerve is the body's version of a Wi-Fi connection between your brain and all your organs. Like, this is the Wi-Fi, right? And it's the longest cranial nerve. So it's running from your brainstem through your neck, chest, and belly. Okay, so it's controlling, like Marissa said, it's your heart rate, it's your digestion, it's if you feel calm or if you feel safe, which means your vagus nerve has to be toned, like AKA it's got to be strong. It's like, if you don't, it's having this like built-in brake pedal for stress. Like, this is what it's there for. So when it's weak, y'all, it's gonna suck. And you're gonna get stuck in fight or flight. Like, that's what it's going to go to because you don't have enough strength in that muscle.
Right. And that can sound definitely a little, scary, but there's good news is that we can actually strengthen our vagal nerve, and that's called improving your vagal tone. And there are literally exercises for your nervous system. There are very practical things that can help you. A lot of different types of breathing that you can, there's a whole list of different breathing types that you can do. Cold exposure, which is something Brittany loves to do.
Oh God, adore it.
Splashing cold water on your face. Brittany actually sticks her face into a bowl of ice, twice a day?
Twice a day.
And at the end of your shower, you can just, do a quick time frame of cold. Your vagus nerve actually loves that shock, so it's not a bad thing. One of my favorite things is actually like humming and singing, and it actually uses a different part of your brain. But like, think about it, you can use music, karaoke almost, right, to having a better nervous system health, right?
Yeah.
And because that vibration, when you're doing that, it actually stimulates the vagus nerve. And I think something like that, it's funny, because I sing and hum all the time around my house. And I don't think until I read and put two and two together, I recognized somewhere on some level that it made me feel better physically. And that was sort of my body's way of just doing something that it knew, right, that made me feel better. But there's a lot of science behind that. I just thought that, I enjoy doing this for some reason.
Yeah, and I love it because it really is like this innate thing, like a kindness that your body's doing. I know we get really mad at our bodies, but like your body is causing you to hum because it's like, oh, I need some exercise, so I'm gonna like do this for you. Like it's got some really good things too. And I would jump into your list and add like laughter. Like it is so, not only do we just enjoy it, it is so good for your vagus nerve. And we're talking like the really like that like guttural deep belly kind, and not like the doom scrolling memes, but like maybe watching people fall down on ice for a long period of time. Like that's pretty good. That's my go-to. Like,
I mean, there's some fail videos online, I'm not gonna lie, that I have cried laughing.
Oh man. Me and Marissa send each other some great ones. I mean, I don't know what it is about people falling. Y'all, I'm sick. So I'm, deal with it. But like, I love it. And if I'm like, I need a pick me up, I'm going to be like, show me some people because I want to see them fall down. Like, because I'm crazy. I'm sorry. But, also prayer and meditation, that is another gold star for Marissa and I. It is so good for my soul to sit with Jesus. It is so good to picture him putting, his forehead against my forehead and just being like, I love you, kid. I love you. You're going to get through this. I am with you. Like it is everything to feel that. It's so calming to my system. And it really sends this signal of like, I'm safe. It's just so good. And my doctor who makes me do I adore him, but I would not naturally shove my face in cold water. Let's just say that. But he's also like, doing lion's pose and fish pose in yoga. And no, I'm not going to show you them right now. So just look them up. But you like totally freak out your kids. Like it's this weird, just look them up and then like drop to your knees and do it when your kids are like losing their minds and they'll stop. I guarantee you. They will stop. But honestly, the easiest for me, because right, so it says like it's going down like your throat, into your chest. So this is where it is, y'all, like in your throat. And I know if you're listening, you can't see. So I'm like touching my throat where like your voice box is. The easiest for me is doing a throat massage for 1 minute. You're just moving it around, right? Do 1 minute, 3 times a day. That's an easy go-to. I have alarms on my phone set out 3 times a day to remind myself to do these vagus tone exercises. And it really is everything.
Yeah. And Brittany and I, we don't just sort of subscribe to like, oh, like what's the trendy wellness hack going around on Instagram? Although I do feel like people are definitely speaking more about the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
But we love research. These are things that we try to incorporate into our everyday life, right? And there is a ton of research that shows that improving that vagal tone can really help lower inflammation in your body, can really help you regulate your immune system, which is obviously exactly what we should all be striving for if we're living with autoimmune disease. And these are things that you can do from home that are fairly easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you're, about to go into a stressful doctor's appointment, a confrontation with a friend or your mate, or you're going to tell your trigger story, it's so good to try one of these things that we just talked about first. Like ground your body so your mind knows I'm safe to talk about this. Like I'm going to be okay. So we're going to do it all together. We're going to have a group, like we said, this is group therapy today. So we're going to do a group therapy exercise. We're going to try this. So if you can, not if you're driving, try this later, but start just massaging your voice box area. like all the way up, to where you're, Adam's apple, if you're a dude, area down, to, your chest. Just start giving it a good old massage. Don't go crazy. Don't make yourself choke, but just like a gentle, like loving, tender massage. And I want you to do that as you listen to these really beautiful words of love and truth as we end this podcast.
Yes. Okay, so Britt and I put together some for you. I'll start. I will stop blaming myself. I did not get sick because I couldn't handle things better.
My body did its absolute best in a hard situation, and that's not failure, that's survival.
My story is still good, and it's still being written. And that raw, tender chapter, it is not the ending of my story.
I am enough as I am right now, always.
Thank you, body, for how you fight for me. I love you.
And if you're listening, y'all, we just challenge you. Share your trigger story. Do it safely with a friend, in a journal, or in prayer. And then after that, just ask yourself, what do I want my next chapter to sound like?
Yeah, I love that. Because we do. We have another chapter. It does not end. Our trigger story of what happened to us is not the end of our entire life story.
No.
So, guys, Tribe, we love you. Thank you for spending today with us. We hope that some of this, helped you. You can connect with us on IG at I'd Like to Unsubscribe, The Chronic Chick, Lupus Chick Official. We'd love to hear if you found things that were helpful about this specific episode. Come and comment, write us a DM. And leave even a few tips if you have them for other people. Other people in the community love to read like what people are doing. So
Yes.
Until next time, just remember we are always rooting for you and we love you guys.
Love you, Chime. Bye.